So, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is an honor and a privilege for me to participate for the first time in this international conference, which looks after managing disruptive transitions. I would like to warmly thank the ORF for inviting me to contribute to this panel on a complex and obviously topical issue, namely women in diplomatic and security policy. I personally link everything to politics. So whatever it is, like diplomatic and security remains part of the choice of politicians and politics. So that's why I'm going to give my thoughts on the role of women in designing public policies and her contribution in preventing conflicts and maintaining stability as a prerequisite condition to achieving democracy. And here we are talking also about managing disruptive transitions. My contribution will therefore reflect my experience as a woman politician, founder of a party, and gender activist within a country that is now passing by a transitional phase that is characterized by diverse contradictions. I will try to highlight what the international and national community needs to do to help women gain more power. As you know, I come from Tunisia, which initiated in 2011 what many people call the Arab Spring. I don't like this word. Women were involved in every step of this movement. She couldn't stand up with dictatorship, marginalization, so she, hand in hand with men, went out to the streets, shouting and shouting. She wrote and shook and confused with her pen. She embarrassed with her art. She impressed with her brave positions. Tunisian women have, as a matter of fact, participated very actively in all forms of expressions during and after the January 14th events, from sit-ins to strikes, to neighborhood watch committee, to social networks. They shouted their objection to the first draft of the new constitution while being drafted because it pointed to women as partner of men. I quote Article 28 that says the state ensures the protection of women's rights and the consolidation of the acquisition of women as a true partner of men in building the nation and as sharing a complementary role within the family. Women in Tunisia protested against being described as partner, which means not equal, and complementary, and so in that a breach of their citizenship. They went on a massive march to express their refusal to the Constitution article and called for its reformulation, and they won the case. So you'll see why I'm talking about all of this, because we will end up in the same position. Starting from that point, we can say that the street has become the space, not to say the battlefield, so that's the space for women, the battlefield for women to express their worries and talk about their aspirations. One of the most important achievements of the post-revolution period was the lifting of the remaining reserve held by Tunisia over CEDAW. The next important achievement of the post-revolution period was the introduction of gender alternating parity as a major component of electoral law. So no lists without like men, women, or women, men, women, men. It's like obligation to accept the list. Of course, not to mention the CSP, the Code de Statut Personnel, the backbone of women's rights legislation in Tunisia, which since 1956 came out with revolutionary laws that protected women and aimed at the institution of equality between women and men in a number of areas, so vote, election, wages, divorce, it outlawed also polygamy. So despite all of this, we still don't see enough women in leadership position in Tunisia. And this is, I should say, is not only specific to Tunisia, I have to admit, and that's why I think we are all here together, gathered today. I believe that women participation in decision making is not necessarily related to legal texts. In fact, there is often a big gap between texts and reality. The social reality of Tunisian women today is pulling her back and putting a brake to her participation and her involvement in public life. The outcome, for example, of the parliamentary elections recently despite the adoption of the parity law, we have out of 217 members of parliament, only 27 of them are women. And you might say, that's okay. No, that's not okay. We want to be real, I mean, like to share the decision making with men. Also, out of 43 members of government, we have only 3 ministers, women, and 3 secretary of state, which means 6 women in 43 men, which is still very much low. This is so a concrete evidence of the big gap between the official texts and the implementation of those texts in real life. So we are lucky, I mean, I'm going to say it somewhere here, I mean, in the Arab world, we all the time say that Tunisian women are very lucky in terms of rights. Yes, we are lucky, but on papers, and we want them to be. I mean, we want to see this on the field. So, I would like to stress on the fact that it is not enough to work on legislating and introducing values and ideas in new constitutions, even for all other countries. The most important thing is to be able to put them into practice through working on changing mindsets. That's the problem, actually. Attitudes. Finding out the causes behind those attitudes and trying to avoid them. So that is, of course, not particular to Tunisia. There is a lot to do with women who, in many cases, and out of cultural formatting, I would say, like we put them in a kind of, and we are formatage, and we are formatting, tend to privilege and give the space to men. Like in the States, and here we have like Sheryl, there's the bestseller of Sheryl Sandberg, Leaning, and she digs deep into gender inequality in this bestseller and underrepresentation of women as a valuable part of the global workforce, and that's why women, you asked the question, why? Because we are a valuable part of the global workforce. It shows, so this book shows how they themselves, women, unintentionally hold themselves back. So again, we cannot just mandate and legislate our way to gender equality. We have to substantially change our attitudes and behavior, both men and women. In fact, among the challenges faced by women candidates during campaigning, for example, this is to give you an example, during campaigning for the legislative election in Tunisia, we can state challenges of 2 sorts, of 2 levels. Social and cultural challenges of a social and cultural natures, and other challenges of a contextual natures. So, as far as the cultural and social related challenges are concerned, we can find social attitudes and prejudice ideas regarding women and political leadership. They would tell you women can't lead. They are not made for that. If you go on like in the street and ask and go for a kind of questionnaire or they would survey, they would go, I mean, no, it's not, she's not made for that. Also there's the challenge of control over women's private life and mobility. Their parents, her father, her bigger brother would like, no, you can't campaign by night. By the end of, I mean, that's of course in the regions. I'm not talking about the cities, but in regions, she has this control over her private life.
Ms. Cherif, if you could quickly, then we can wrap up.
Yeah. The way roles and responsibility are being also shared within the family, lots of burden on women, which makes her really not able to go for public activities and public life. On the contextual, so I will go to contextual challenges. We had low media coverage for women candidates. Only 2 to 4% of space in newspaper, for example, magazines, and media in general was reserved to women candidates in Tunisia in 2011 legislative elections. And the total absence of adequate strategies and clear mechanism to encourage the participation of women within the political parties.